management team, and administrative staff. So, if you're contemplating a career in real estate, look no further than MP Dodge. It will be the best decision you make.
Integrated Life Choices has been inspiring opportunities for individuals with disabilities for more than 15 years in Lincoln and across Nebraska by offering a number of services. From group homes to independent living resources and job training, you'll find the support that allows people to live fulfilling lives. They're also hiring. If you're looking for a rewarding career supporting people with developmental disabilities, you can check out open positions along with learning more about services at ilc.net. Integrated Life Choices.
Live from the heart of Lincoln, America, welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome back into Ticket Weekends. I am Harrison Arens, going to be going solo all the way up until 12 o'clock. And from there, and start the afternoon off, you will have The Breeze with DP and Haas, as always, followed by that, the Nico Project. And Sunday shows continue on all the way up until 11 p.m. tonight. So definitely be sure to tune in. And if you guys want to join these shows, Sartor Heyman text line 402-464-5685. That is the Sartor Heyman text line, as well as I'm streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, in Allo channel 951. Use the streams, a great way to put a face to the voice if that's what you're trying to do. Or again, Sartor Heyman text line, always a great option to join in as well. But nonetheless, since typically this is the Lloyds and Lincoln hour, obviously with Nebraska basketball today playing at home versus Michigan State, their attention is locked in elsewhere. But nonetheless, I do want to continue to talk about this Nebraska basketball team because past two games have been rough. I think a lot of people who are excited for this Nebraska ball team, a little closer to panicking. Obviously, it's still early in the season. You just opened up Big Ten conference play, but you went from 7-0 to 7-2, 2-game losing skid. Creighton, a good team. You can somewhat understand the loss to them. Maybe not by the margin they lost by, but again, when you have guys like Baylor Shireman, Kalkbrenner, Trey Alexander played great in that game as well. And just all the role players, when they're making threes at that high of a clip, that is what you would call a perfect storm game. That is just tough to stop anyone shooting the ball that well, especially on the opposite end of the court. You're shooting an abysmal percentage from the three-point line. And unfortunately, this poor shooting run would last all the way into the Minnesota game as well. Tough game on the road. You're up by 15 at one point heading into the half. Most of your points were not coming from the three-point line, but just through good ball movement, right? A lot of backdoor cuts, backdoor screens, just catching Minnesota off guard on some timely cuts and reads. And then one thing about Nebraska basketball that you do feel good about, solid passing all around. The assist numbers are typically high. They're willing to look for the open man, make that extra pass. And it was working against Minnesota. The poor shooting was still there from the outside, but in the first half, they were able to get their points, penetrating, cutting to the rim, taking a timely cut. Of any time they caught a Minnesota defender falling asleep or maybe ball hawking a little too much. Second half, Minnesota adjusted. They really stopped cheating in the passing lanes. They stuck a lot more to their guy. Tamanaga, even though he wasn't scoring, they refused to even let him get going. They were chasing him around everything, over the top, every single screen, hand him off to the next guy. And again, for the rest of the team, they were playing it safe, right? They were not going to be messing around in the passing lanes. They'd get in your chest. But for the most part, the next guy off the ball was in the chest as well. So they took that away, and you have to give Minnesota credit, right? They adjusted defensively. They said, these guys aren't making outside shots. Fine. We will stop pressing them so much out there, and we'll really lock up on these backdoor screens and try not to get beat that way. And it worked well for them. Second half, you just kind of felt like Minnesota out-hustled Nebraska too, which isn't a great feeling. I don't think Minnesota's that good of a team. I think Minnesota will probably finish towards the bottom of the Big Ten again this year. Maybe not the bottom. A little impressed by some of their players. But again, I mean, Nebraska went into that game and Minnesota's missing their best player 2 minutes into the game. A guy who just dropped, over 30 points in his last game. He's not there for Minnesota, a team who already kind of struggles offensively, not only getting points, but turning the ball over and playing on that side of the court consistently. And you had a good opportunity. You're leading them at half. They don't have their best player. You're up by 15, and you have to give Minnesota credit. They just out-hustled Nebraska straight up in that game in the second half. The rebounding numbers will tell you it was close. The eye test will tell you A lot of those rebounds, yeah, Minnesota wasn't credited for them, but it was through a missed shot. Both teams are going after it. Unfortunately, it lands on Nebraska's hands last. Still Minnesota ball, even though they don't get credited for a rebound. That was a lot of it in the second half, right? Just Nebraska not being able to maintain possession. Ball coming off hands through the battle. Give credit to Minnesota's big man. They made a huge impact in that second half, not only defensively, but offensively. It just looked like everything was starting to be wide open for him. Some really easy lobs, just simple third man passes. They do the pick and roll. The big man would lob, like nothing crazy, but it was really opening up for him in that second half. And it does make you worry a little bit. That's 2 games now where Rink Mast, great player offensively. I think you'd say he's a pretty solid playmaker as well. But a couple of games there where the size has bothered him a little bit. He hasn't been as effective. Kalkbrenner, obviously, he's been an amazing player in the Big East for a while now. You can kind of expect that one. But again, Minnesota, that's nothing new. You're going to be dealing with 7-footers more often than not in this Big Ten play, or at least guys close to that 7-foot range, 6'10" and up. And you do get a little worried, right? Can Nebraska's size handle the Big Ten size? Because especially in these past 2 games, we're seeing that these rebounding numbers are becoming a lot tougher for us. Creighton's a game where I thought rebounding wise, we'd still be able to beat them out. Obviously, Kalkbrenner's good, but with the rest of the team, I felt like Nebraska crashed the boards harder. Minnesota is more what we're going to get frequently and often. That is always going to be a battle on the boards. And Nebraska hasn't been able to really pull it out. Again, it was tied against Minnesota. Didn't look tight on the eye test. So many balls Nebraska had the opportunity to grab would end up just falling out of bounds through the entire roster trying to grab a rebound. But they got another chance here against Michigan State. Tonight at 5:30, it's at home. You're back at PBA. Obviously, shout out to Nebraska volleyball. You'll be playing on that court that just got not a Devaney, but a PBA. You'll be playing at home. Shout out to the volleyball girls, got their win in Devaney. See if we can get another win at PBA tonight with the men's Nebraska basketball team. And it's a Michigan State team. The Michigan State, they've been a little up and down this year. They had some tough games. All right. So I understand that they're 4-4, but they did only lose to number 1 Arizona by, I think, 4 points in that one. They would lose to ranked Duke team. They've had a tough schedule. So this isn't a 4-4 Michigan State team that is going to be a pushover by any means. They're 0-1 in conference play, but again, give it time. Anytime you have a Tom Izzo-led Michigan State team, that's not a team you can ever count out. I do think they're getting their bearings. I think they'll get better as the season progresses. But again, it isn't the best Michigan State team we've seen. So it is a winnable game for Nebraska. They've had a tough schedule, but they haven't always been able to dominate some of their lesser opponents as well. So given that, huge opportunity for Nebraska, get your first conference win, start 1-1, because we can't go through another season where Nebraska midway through is stuck in the bottom of the conference or below average in the conference. You know, this is a team where you're 5 under Hoiberg. You got to start putting wins on the table. You got to get this team to the tournament. It's a Power 5 program. I understand it's Nebraska. There's not a lot of history there. There's history with players, but in terms of success in the tournament, little to none, right? The most we've done is just gotten there. You have yet to actually win a game in March Madness. Year 5 for Hoiberg. You just lost to, in my opinion, what is a bad Minnesota team, 7-3 overall record. I expect that number to continue to get closer to 500 as this Big Ten play continues. And we see it all the time. The Big Ten, they cannibalize each other a little bit. You know, it's not loaded teams, but you can't take teams like Ohio State, Wisconsin. You know, for a while there, it looked like they were also pushing Arizona last night in their game, 23 Wisconsin at that ranked opponent. And then obviously Illinois, Northwestern, surprising this year as well. They get a win over Purdue, gives Purdue their first loss of the season, and Purdue's had a gauntlet of a schedule. Northwestern might be the last team you would pick to give them their first loss, but nonetheless, there's Northwestern 1-0. And then, of course, Indiana 2-0 in conference play right now, 7-2 overall. Just lost their last one. But again, that's the Big Ten. You're not maybe going to see elite team after elite team, but you see plenty of teams that are capable of knocking off top 25 caliber opponents. It's just a matter of not can they get their shooting down that night. And if it's a hot night, most of these Big Ten teams have good enough defense, good enough size where that's all they need, right? Some threes to go in, their offense will be clicking. And then defensively, we know most of these Big Ten teams can hold up for the most part. Nebraska is one of them that is going to be a challenge. I have to see, what does Nebraska look like? Can we win some games here where on size, on paper, we're outmatched. I like Rink Mast and all he's able to do, but you got to help him out, right? You understand he's not the biggest center. You understand that when he's rebounding out there, because I'm talking about this rebound battle with Minnesota, it's not like it was all Rink Mast. There was a lot of guys not turning around, grabbing a jersey, and finding their guy. That makes it incredibly tough for Rink Mast, who's already undersized. And now he's got two bigs going at the rim in his 1v2. That's going to make it hard. And he still did pull 9 boards in that loss to Minnesota. It's not like he wasn't doing anything out there, but the rest of the team, you got to help him out. This is going to be a common theme throughout the year. I think most of these Big Ten teams are going to go ahead and send their guys to crash the boards, egress the offensive glass offensively, because they're going to see those opportunities. I think most teams will recognize Nebraska as a group that you can take advantage of if you send guys out for the offensive rebound. I don't think we're going to see a lot of teams playing Nebraska go all out, maybe send a couple guys and everyone else go back out, play defense, get on that side of the court. Teams are going to send guys for the boards. You're going to have to help Rink Mast out. Juwan Gary, Bryce Williams, big guys, use your size, grab the board, get up and go. But keep expecting that. I expect a lot of teams to continue to really challenge Nebraska offensively on the boards. Michigan State probably going to do the same tonight, right? If I'm Michigan State, I'm looking at this Nebraska team who's been struggling shooting the three-point ball. I'm hoping that continues. I'm taking a page from Minnesota's book. Keisei Tamanaga basically got held to being ineffective outside of free throws. And they harassed him all game. And they said, you guys can beat us, but Tamanaga is not going to be the guy. And for a while there, it looked like it was going to be Bryce Williams' night, right? He gets 11 points pretty quick, would end up fouling out in the second half after the entire offense just came to a screeching halt. But it was Bryce Williams. And in the second half, we needed another guy. They were draped all over Keisei Tamanaga. We just didn't have anyone that could really get it going. Even same thing with CJ Wilcher, great player, but we need a guy consistently through 4 quarters that we know can be a threat. I thought it was going to be Bryce Williams last game, but I don't know if it's frustration. Foul trouble doesn't help. Obviously, gets an unfortunate technical. I shouldn't say unfortunate technical. You got to be smarter than that. Anytime you're grabbing a player and stopping his ability to get up, you're trying to grab his foot. Yeah, you're going to get teed up for that every single time. You got to work better on that end, but we just need a more consistent scorer. Keisei Tamanaga needs to be that guy. Even if teams are draping him, you can't have those Minnesota performances. You have to get creative, find sets where we can get him the ball, be a threat out there. Because if we can get Keisei Tamanaga going for Nebraska hoops, everything's going to open up. How much easier would it be if you are an undersized center in Rink Mast, if you got Keisei Tamanaga stretching out that entire defense through 3-point shooting? And we have enough guys around Tamanaga that if they have to really focus on him, that should open things up. Unfortunately, last game, no one else could hit anything. So with Tamanaga pretty much held to neutral, all the other guys were cold. All the points on the inside dried up really quick in that second half after give credit to Minnesota adjusting on defense, taking away everything backdoor. We need someone to step up consistently. It's a two-sided coin, right? Week in, week out, through this early part of the season, Nebraska basketball's had different leading scorers most of the time. Through those first 7 wins, we only had the same leading scorer twice. So it's kind of nice, right? You're getting production from just about everywhere. That second unit for Nebraska in particular has been doing really well for Nebraska. At the same time, night in, night out, you're not sure who that guy's going to be for you. So in some ways, it's great. It's hard to scout against if you're the opposing team. You don't know who that guy's going to be. If it's Nebraska, you're not necessarily sure who's that guy's going to be for your offense. You hope it's Tamanaga. You hope it's Bryce Williams, but no one's really oozing that confidence right now in this point of the season where you now know night in, night out, you're going to get a good game from him. Tamanaga, shooting numbers are fine, but he just can't get enough shots up right now. The defenses are doing everything they should, which is smart. Eliminate his play at all costs and try to let the other guys beat you. And it worked well for Minnesota. Creighton worked well for them. Again, that was just a nightmare game where Nebraska couldn't hit anything from the outside. And I think even if Tamanaga does have a great game versus Creighton, Creighton probably still wins that one the way they were shooting the ball. But it's going to be a problem for Nebraska. They got to find some more consistency offensively. It's awesome to have multiple guys that can be your leading scorer, but we need to kind of figure out who our guys are. Tamanaga, obviously you want to get him going. Bryce Williams seems like he should be a guy that's in high, double digits every single game. he can be essentially a 3-level scorer for you. He's shown it from the outside. He's shown it with his finishing ability inside. Maybe he's got to work a little bit on finishing at the rim instead of just kind of bullying through people. He's got good enough footwork. Maybe try to get him up in the air, especially against that Minnesota team. That is one thing that surprised me. Anyone that watched that game knew Minnesota was flying in the air for the rejection every single time you went inside. It was no hesitation. Those guys were up in the air. If you're rink masked, perfect. You're an undersized center. That pump fakes in your toolbox already. Get those big guys up in the air, go up and under, try to get foul out of them, put them in foul trouble. Same thing if you're Bryce Williams. I understand you got some height, but if you're playing a Minnesota team that just wants to reject everything, instead of putting yourself in foul trouble by trying to bully through them with the shoulder, just go pump fake up in the air, get a guy up. If he doesn't go up, maybe put it on the deck, work on your post moves or kick it back outside. But just felt like too many times we're going in the rim, attacking with no real goal other than hoping to get a foul or hoping to sneak it past the bigs off the glass. They were trying to block every single shot out there. I felt like so many lost opportunities where we could have got Minnesota into some serious foul trouble, which, early on could have been a problem for him if we kept our foot on the gas and continued to attack the paint inside. The 3-point shot is not settling. That's fine. Go to work inside, get the bigs in foul trouble. And again, trust your guy Rink Mast to make the right play. That's one thing about Rink Mast game that gives me a lot of hope for Nebraska. Even if at times it does look like he has a pretty decent size disadvantage, when he has the ball inside, he's pretty quick with his decisions. He's not going to force it if he doesn't like the matchup. And he's always looking for that extra pass. That can be said for most of this Nebraska team, but Rink Mast in particular, I feel like he's been solid down there. Even though this past 2 games haven't been great for him, he makes the right decision just about every single time, makes the right read, gets it out when he needs to, and just keeps the ball moving. That's one thing versus Minnesota I feel like I didn't see enough of. Go inside, bring it back out. That'll open up your 3-point shot a lot. The dribble handoff is nice to try to get a wide open 3, but it's a lot easier when you can put pressure inside, kick it back out, and your feet are already set instead of running off a dribble handoff where you're maybe fading to the right or left before you get your feet set. Go inside, kick it back out, try to get your shots that way. The offense in general just has to find some sort of rhythm, something that they can do night in, night out that is consistent. Right now, it's a little all over the place. Some nights we are beating teams to some really good 3-point shooting. Other nights we're doing it by attacking the rim. And luckily, we've had nights where you couldn't say this last year where we're winning off of free throws. That's one thing this Nebraska basketball team has done well. We're shooting pretty high clips in the free throw percentage, a big jump from last season. That should help us win games. There's a lot of games last year that was unfortunate for Nebraska that we just couldn't pull out because we're shooting, a low 70%. At times we'd finish games shooting 60% from the free throw line. In Big Ten, you need to make your free throws. You're probably going to get tacked, going to the rim a lot. You're probably going to get a lot of fouls. You have to make your free throws, and that's something they've done well, something that maybe gives you some more confidence, but they got to start picking it up today. Michigan State, right now sitting second to last in Big Ten play. Michigan surprisingly sitting at dead last, 0-1, 4-5 overall. But these are games, if it's year 5 under Hoiberg, there's no more excuses. It's kind of like Nebraska football. We just saw Northwestern go bowling after their scandal before the season even started, and they still found a way to get to 7 wins and go bowling. And it's not like they had an easier schedule than Nebraska did. They had some tough games. They managed to beat some of their tougher opponents. They had their opportunity against Wisconsin and they beat them pretty handedly. Nebraska couldn't quite get over the edge. Obviously, we didn't get over the edge versus Iowa either. But the time thing, I'm not buying. This is a team that's got enough depth. You have a all Big Ten ballot player in Keisei Tamanaga, who we've struggled to get going. But you have enough depth on this roster, enough veterans that you have to start winning games. I don't know how kindly people will look on this Nebraska basketball roster under Fred Hoiberg if we kind of end this season close to, even if it's just a little better. That's going to be huge disappointment in a lot of people's eyes. You have a roster built that you finally put together. No COVID year to worry about. It's not like your first year here where you're just trying to get some of these football guys to fill up roster spots. This is your team, the team that you picked out, the team with the depth that you wanted, and there's a lot of it. You have to figure out these rotations, and you just have to start winning games. It was a good start. You're only 7-2. It's not like you've been losing at a terrible stretch here. You're only on a 2-game losing skid. But if you can't take care of Michigan State At home, another thing for Nebraska, we have to start taking some pride at winning games at the Vault. You have an opportunity, get the crowd into it, get the fan base back into Nebraska basketball because it already taken a little bit of hit. That Minnesota loss frustrated a lot of Nebraska basketball fans because it just tired of losing to Minnesota, right? Last season, you get to the Big Ten tournament play. Nebraska basketball is winning games. They find a way to simply grind games out on defense. You'll lose so much offensively, but that defensive unit really picked it up. You head to the Big Ten tournament play. You play last place Minnesota for the first Big Ten bracket game that Nebraska's in, and you find a way to lose that one. Creek has a great game, who's now no longer on that Minnesota team, but you're just at a point where you have to start winning games. You know, we need tangible evidence to indicate that this team's getting better because the fan base, especially with a lot of these men's programs here, we just haven't had anything tangible. So maybe it's unfair, but that's why the coach speak can get on people's nerves, because we've had coach speak through a plethora of coaches, through football, basketball, whatever it may be. You know, outside of most of the women's sports, it's been coach speak for a lot of these main guy sports that we always talk about here on air. We just need something tangible. You know, that's where a lot of the frustration comes in, I think, for most Nebraska fans. Because at the end of every season, we hear that we're on the right track and we're getting better, that yes, these losses are frustrating, but the process is still going as planned, and we're going to double down. We're going to continue this process out. Well, when there's nothing ever to point to year after year at the end of the season that can actually indicate to your everyday fan that the program is getting better, hence a bowl game, haven't done that since 2017, or if you're Nebraska, making at least a couple wins in the Big Ten tournament play, getting into March Madness without any of that, it just sounds like coach speak. And that's where a lot of the frustration comes in. And that's where you need to start winning games. I don't think time is the answer. I think the answer is in the roster right now. You have enough good players. You can start winning games in the Big Ten. You can be above average in the Big Ten with this roster. Top to bottom, when I look at it, when I look at the Big Ten as a whole, this is a team that on paper should be able to compete and get to a tournament. Anything less than that, I am going to be disappointed. It's year 5. You got the guys you want. The expectations are a little higher, and they should be. You know, I like Fred Hoiberg. He's obviously a good coach. He's credited in the NBA for his offensive prowess, and a lot of other coaches in the NBA will actually use a lot of his stuff. When it started at Iowa State, he obviously had the JUCO train running into that program, took big advantage of that, got a lot of good players. Rest of the country caught on. You can't just grab the number 1 JUCO players anymore, which he was doing at Iowa State. Goes to the Bulls, has his tenure there. Obviously back here at Nebraska, the recruiting's a little different, but nonetheless, he has his guys right now, and I think you can't really make up any more excuses. So I do expect Nebraska basketball to get a win over a struggling Michigan State team right now. A team that got shocked early on, lost to James Madison, who James Madison, good team. I don't think people were expecting them to be that good, but they are ranked 18 in the AP top 25 in men's college basketball. So maybe it wasn't that bad of a loss for Michigan State. They've had a tough schedule, but still to be 4-4. They've dropped some winnable ones as well. This is a gettable team at home at PBA. You know, get some momentum back into conference play, and hopefully this can lead to a good run. Get above 500. If you can get above 500 in conference play, you're definitely a tournament team. But it's going to be up to Fred Hoiberg in this roster to kind of double down, figure out ways to get Tominaga unleashed. We're still waiting for that game where he just goes, you know, lights out, ice cold. And we saw it the entire pretty much last quarter of the stretch last season where we've seen what Tominaga can do. And if you can find a way to unlock that again, shots will start falling for it. It's a little bit contagious when Tominaga's shooting the ball that well, especially at PBA. The crowd gets into it, and it can be a real opportunity for Nebraska to get right back on track tonight versus Michigan State. We're going to go ahead and throw it to break here, though, on this first segment. Ticket Weekends with Harrison Arens going all the way solo up until 12 p.m., and then we'll still have the breeze, as always, with Hoster Breezy and DP. But don't go anywhere. 402-565. That is the Starter Heyman text line. Feel free to chime in anytime you want. We'll read them as they come in. But nonetheless, we'll throw it to break here. I'll talk to you guys on the other side.
Sunday morning. It's quiet. Not in a weird, too quiet way. Calm, peaceful, tranquil. You pour yourself that cup of coffee. You slice yourself a hearty chunk of one of Beatrice Bakery's breakfast breads. Now, maybe you're an apple streusel guy. Nothing wrong with that. I can respect that. Personally, I'm a turtle nut man. Something about those pecans. But the real ones know, don't sleep on that date nut bread. Sweet, but not too sweet. Nutty, not overly, the perfect morning treat. Beatrice Bakery, online at beatricebakery.com. Welcome to our world of yum. School taught you all about the 4 seasons, spring, summer, and so on. And then there's the way we really tell what time of year it is in sports seasons. Football season, baseball season, or off season. But what's the chocolate season? Well, it's now. And now, and now, and always. Whether you're looking for a caffeinated pick-me-up on the way to work, a little snack on the way home, or you need the perfect gift that's sure to be appreciated, it's time for the chocolate season. 40th and Old Cheney, or order ahead at thechocolateseason.com.
This year, give the gift of delicious food, incredible service, and a lasting memory with the Pillar Restaurant Group gift card. When you purchase a $50 gift card, you receive a $5 bonus card, or purchase a $100 gift card to receive a $20 bonus card. These cards can be used at all Pillar Restaurant Group locations, including Venue Restaurant and Lounge, Piedmont Bistro, The Butchery, The Bakery, and all Lincoln Good Sense Deli Fresh Subs locations. Available for purchase at any of our concepts or online at prgnebraska.com.
Not many businesses can say they've made it 60 years, but Madsen's Bowling and Billiards can. With 12 bowling lanes and the biggest pool room in Nebraska, where else would you go to enjoy an afternoon or evening? There's a great daily specials like $2 Tuesdays, games of bowling, shoe rentals, draft beers, and tacos, all just $2 each. Have a delicious burger at EJ's Lounge before or after your bowling or pool session, and you'll leave satisfied. Madsen's Bowling and Billiards at 47th and Dudley.
At Southeast Community College, community is our middle name. Our continuing education classes offer personal interest, traffic safety and licensing, online learning, and adult education classes across Southeast Nebraska, or online in your own home. Learn to ride a motorcycle, how to start a small business, how to dance, or take a course to advance in your current career path. See the full schedule of continuing education classes online at southeast.edu/continuing. SCC, your path to possible.
Introducing The Outlet by Sartor Heyman. The Outlet brings you luxurious Sartor Heyman quality jewelry at unbeatable prices. Shop our expansive inventory of overstocked merchandise and a vast estate collection that just hasn't found its home yet. This is your chance to own stunning designer jewelry at a fraction of the cost. Elevate your style at The Outlet by Sartor Heyman, where luxury and affordability meet. Downtown at 12th and O or online at sartorheyman.com.
Is our middle name. Our continuing education classes offer personal interest, traffic safety and licensing, online learning, and adult education classes.
At Fairway Meat Market, your family. And as part of the family, they want to save you money on your meat and groceries. The holidays are here, and Fairway has everything you need for charcuterie boards, shrimp trays, party platters, wine, beer, spirits, and more. Plus, custom fresh cuts on USDA choice or prime grade beef, all-natural pork, fresh chicken, and seafood. Your holiday meals start at Fairway Meat Market in the Rockledge Square Shopping Center just south of 84th and Van Dorn.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions.
I'm Christy. I used to smoke cigarettes. I had smoker's cough and severe shortness of breath, and I knew I had to quit. Then I tried e-cigarettes, but I just ended up using both. I really didn't start to get better until I quit smoking completely. My tip to you is just cutting down on the number of cigarettes you smoke isn't enough.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Back to the Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome back in to Ticket Weekends. I am Harrison Arens on the ones and twos, going solo all the way up until 12 o'clock. And followed by that, a little bit of programming heads up. It will be The Breeze, but just me and Haas today on that one. Keep us company. We'll probably talk some pro wrestling. We'll talk some college football. And, of course, maybe some Heisman talk as well. If you guys want to join the show, Starter Haven text line 402-464-5685. Join me that way. And again, through the streams, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Allo, channel 951. A comment, engage, put a face to the voice, do what you need to. And I always comment on anything you bring in if it's appropriate for on-air conversation. But nonetheless, we spent a lot of time talking Nebraska hoops on the last segment. Disappointing 2-game skid. We broke it down. Creighton, you lost to a team that was just on a tear from three-point line. Hard to beat anyone that way. Minnesota, a gettable game. You got out hustled. It looked like a Big Ten West football game in the second half. And it looked a lot like Nebraska football in the second half of Big Ten West football games. You just got out hustled. They just did enough to get you off guard. And you're getting out hustled towards the end there. They make a couple big plays. Here comes the losing skid, the shakes, the curse, snake bitten, whatever you want to call it. Nebraska gets out hustled and they can't find a way to close it out. But we'll get off that unless you guys want to comment back on it. Feel free to join the show. But let's switch it up here to some college football. Obviously, we had the Heisman race. Jaden Daniels of LSU gets the Heisman Award. And I think that went to the most deserving guy because his offensive prowess at LSU, it was incredible. That team would be undefeated if they just had any bit of defense. You know, defensively, they were struggling really bad. So I'd hate not to give it to Jaden Daniels just because he was on a roster where the defense wasn't competing with the offense. But offensively, he was putting insane numbers up just because they weren't winning to the same level Joe Burrow was. That wasn't talked about as much, but his numbers, they don't look too far from Joe Burrow. If not, they look even a little bit better in some of those categories. So I think Jaden Daniels was the right selection. I think if you're going to give it to a quarterback, it had to be Jaden Daniels. Michael Penix Jr. would come in second. I can see arguments for giving it to Michael Penix Jr., but again, I think if you put Jaden Daniels on Washington, that's still an undefeated roster. They might even win those games a little more easily because Michael Penix Jr., he's been putting up some solid numbers throughout the entire year. But again, so has Jaden Daniels at an even higher clip. They just don't have the wins behind it because the defense can't really bail them out like Washington's defense was this season. Because against Oregon, that was a high-powered offense, but you'd see Washington's defense do just enough to answer the bell and get them off the field so Michael Penix Jr. can get back on. If LSU had a defense that could get the team off the field, let Jaden Daniels get back on the field with good field position, his numbers might even look crazier. So that's why I think it's the right candidate. Even his numbers were already better, and that was with a defense that, for the most part, was getting outperformed quite a bit against better opponents, eating away time of clock because your defense is out on the field longer than they need to be. You give Jaden Daniels some of that time of possession on a good team where his defense is able to execute, get off the field, you're going to see another tick up in Jaden Daniels' numbers. So I think it's the fair choice. Michael Penix Jr. at 2, I'm good with that. Bo Nix at 3, not a fan of. I think it should have been Marvin Harrison Jr. At 3. You don't really talk about the rankings too much with the Heisman, but I do think as a wide receiver, the impact he had, Kyle McCord, it's just made him such an easy, available weapon for him consistently. And we're going to see him at the NFL level, and he'll probably be one of those guys that plugs and plays pretty seamlessly. So I'm okay with the ranking. Maybe I slide Marvin Harrison Jr. up at 3rd. I don't think you put him above Michael Penix Jr. Essentially, as a quarterback's award, it's hard to have a greater impact, when you're not in that position, especially playing wide receiver. It's tough, but nonetheless, I'm okay with the rankings. If you guys disagree, you can let me know. 402-464-5685. But Jaden Daniels on that LSU team, his numbers were insane. I said it before. If he had a defense that was able to get the opposing team's offense off the field, give Jaden Daniels some more touches, his numbers would have spiked up even more. Michael Penix Jr., undefeated Washington team. They're in the playoffs, deserving of that one as well. Beat Oregon twice. And that first time, it was all Michael Penix Jr., how they beat Oregon. So even if you want to argue why he could be number one, I could listen to the argument. But Bo Nix at 3, there was really nothing in there for me to think Bo Nix was ever going to win it. And Marvin Harrison Jr. was the only skill player that maybe could have made some noise. But for the most part, I'm totally okay with the rankings. A lot more satisfied with the Heisman winner than I am the playoff bracket for college football. And we'll go ahead and dive in there next. So obviously you have at number 1, Michigan. I don't think there's any problems there. I think hands down, even if you like him or hate him, no one can disagree that Michigan is the number 1 team in college football. Undefeated. You beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. And you did it pretty soundly too. There's no real panic in that Ohio State game. They took care of business the way they needed to. You go to the Big Ten championship. Once again, Iowa gets its hopes up. Iowa's just not going to beat a Michigan team. It's been like that for year in, year out. Anytime I was in that Big Ten game, they just don't have enough offense to really push any of the elite Big East teams. But that's not going to be a problem. Next year, we won't have to force Iowa out there in a game where no one really expects them to win. But again, Michigan looked dominant the entire season. They're number 1, and I don't think it's close. Number 2, Washington. I've seen another undefeated team. They managed to beat Oregon twice in the Pac-12. And again, as the Pac-12 is dissolving, for a blue blood conference, good for the Pac-12 on going out for a bang. Because this is a year where you might honestly have to look at the Pac-12 as the best conference in college football this year. If you're looking top to bottom skill level, it might be the Pac-12. If you're looking for juggernauts, you're probably looking at the SEC in Georgia and Alabama as the best 1-2 punch in college football. If you're looking about, just as a whole, you're probably going Pac-12 still. But yeah, the Big Ten wasn't really their year. The Big Ten West was pretty disastrous. Penn State, you thought it could be a big year for them, but it wasn't. Michigan took care of them pretty handily as well. Then you move on to Texas at number 3, Alabama at number 3. Got no problems there as well. It's just unfortunate because that is a game where as soon as Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, it just messed everything up because FSU is out simply for being in the ACC. They're out simply for Jordan Travis having an injury. I don't think you can do that to a team on speculation. You're assuming that their different is going to be worse. Now it makes sense. Their second string quarterback would be in. It wouldn't be their third stringer, but to me, that's even more of a reason they deserve to get in. They won the ACC championship against the Louisville team, who even if you don't think is all great, they're still ranked in the AP top 25. It's not a pushover team by any means. We've saw that defense give problems to some real caliber teams in the ranked AP top 25. That Louisville defense is legit. It's not a team that you can just run out and score with anybody. I'd have a hard time imagining Nebraska putting points on that Louisville defense. Well, Florida State finds a way to do it with their third string quarterback. They lean on the run game. They pick it up on defense. They do what they need to do to win the game. They're with their third string quarterback. They're not going to blow out a team out of the water. But their defense, they hold Louisville to 6 points with their third string quarterback on offense. They're able to score 16 points by using that running game. They did what they needed to belong in the college football playoffs. They're 13-0. You won the you won the ACC championship with your third string quarterback. You were going to have your second string quarterback back for the playoffs if you got in, but it was already decided beforehand. It felt like no matter what the result of that game was, unless Florida State didn't blow out Louisville by 40 points, Alabama and Texas were going to get in. And to me, maybe that's the best 4 games, but it should be about the integrity of it, which is kind of laughable talking about the NCAA and integrity. But if you were doing it the right way, in my mind, Florida State at 13-0, there's no legitimate reason why you can write them off. Put them in over Alabama because you probably have to keep Texas in there. If Texas won the head-to-head over over Alabama, and then Alabama would go into the SEC championship game and beat out Georgia. Logistically, if this was any other conference, if it wasn't the SEC, both of those teams would be out. And Florida State would take their place, and Texas would be in for beating Alabama earlier in the season. But because it was the SEC, one of those teams had to be in there. If not both of them, potentially were going to be in there, and the ACC gets left out. I just don't think that's the right thing to do with a guy like Jordan Travis, who you're just assuming they're going to be worse. You're just assuming that their defense isn't going to be able to hold up, that they're not going to be able to find answers in the running game, which if you look at the ACC championship, they found an answer on offense through the running game, eating clock, and they found an answer on defense by just staying consistent there as they have all season. So those are two things they needed to prove to me to still belong. Can you win with your third string quarterback? Can you find a different way to be effective offensively without the elite passing game in Jordan Travis? And can your defense hold to the level they were before Travis got hurt? And it was yes and yes. Those were, to me, the only things they needed to answer if they still belonged. And they answered those two things pretty easily, in my opinion. That's where I'm at. If you guys disagree that you think Alabama is the right choice and Texas, obviously going in there if Alabama is going to be in there. But it definitely does add a lot of controversy when you have a team that goes undefeated, wins their conference championship. That is a Power 5 division. And they're left out simply because it's the ACC and their quarterback's hurt. I thought it was unfair. I think a lot of people think it's unfair. And the problem with this 14 bracket is that no matter who you left out, it was going to be unfair. A 29 win streak Georgia takes one loss in the SEC championship game, and they're out of the college football playoffs. If Georgia would have lost earlier in the season and had one loss and then beat Alabama in the SEC championship, they would have been in. And that's a rivalry game. We've seen how those rivalry games go year in, year out, whether it's Ohio State and Michigan, whether it's Nebraska in Iowa, whether it's Oklahoma in Texas. All of those rivalry games can go either way. There's something about those games where it brings out the best in both teams. So just to lose one, it's unfortunate. But that's the thing with this 14 playoff bracket. Every single team that's left out, at least for those few fringe teams that gets left out, Georgia has an argument. Florida State obviously had an argument. And if Alabama did get left out, they would have an argument. If Texas got left out, all of those teams would have an argument and they would have some legitimacy to them. So again, that's why it's good that they are actually expanding this thing out to 12-team playoffs. We can argue about the 13th and 14th team that got left out next year. But again, that's going to be a lot better than talking about an undefeated team who won their conference championship that got left out. You know, these arguments are still going to happen. We're still going to bicker about the 13 and 14 team next season, but at least that 13 and 14 team won't be an undefeated conference champion. So it still might be the best 4 games that's out there. And if that's your reasoning for the college football playoffs, that you think it should just be the best 4 teams, period, okay, fair enough. Then maybe you did get the 4 right teams in there. But if it's based off the regular season, it does feel like Florida State got screwed on that one. We do got one unknown texter here. Do you think the BCS would have gotten the top 4 correct? That's a good question because they haven't always gotten it right. I think I like my chances better with the BCS getting it correct. It'd still be one of those where I'd have to really look at what they're dealing with on the analytics, how they're pulling those winners out. And that's another thing with this committee that we have right now and why it's always been so frustrating because it's kind of opaque from the outside looking in, right? We kind of know what the requirements are, but we don't really know what the conversations are when the doors are closed. We get the quote unquote requirements on what we think should be the requirements, on what the big talking heads on TV tell us the requirements are to be a college football playoff team, but we don't actually hear the conversations once the door shuts, when they're locked in during conference championship weekend. Like, I'm sure that was a long night. I don't think it was a hasty decision. I think it was thought out. Unfortunately, maybe money was a part of it, especially when you're talking about the SEC, ESPN, a little bit of correlation there. So that's the problem, right? We kind of know what the requirements are, what the requirements should be, but the conversations, once the doors are closed, we don't always know what that looks like from the outside looking in. And again, we can always continue to talk about this. We do got to throw it to our last break here. We do have Dion saying we made a huge mistake and should go back to how things were in the 80s or 90s. And there's a good argument for that, right? Like the new systems, we keep trying these new systems. Someone's always frustrated at the end. It's definitely not perfect. And we do have not unknown texter. That was my brother chiming in as well. So maybe we got to get that updated in the context. But nonetheless, we do got to throw it to our last break here. Going solo. We will still have the breeze. It'll be me and just Haas for that one. DP will be out, but nonetheless, plenty of great conversations ahead there. But we got one more segment, Tick Weekends with Harrison Arens. Don't go anywhere. I'll talk to you guys in a little bit.
Think of when you hear the chocolate season. Artisan chocolates? Of course. They have the best chocolates this side of the Atlantic. Friendly neighborhood coffee shop? Yup, they're that too. A nationally recognized top-tier brunch spot. Waffle weekends, baby. And the place to grab a gift for literally any occasion? Everybody loves chocolate. See for yourself at the Chocolate Season, 40th and Old Cheney, or order ahead online at thechocolateseason.com.
Become a member of the YMCA today and enjoy access to all 4 Lincoln locations. Free group fitness classes along with member pricing for the whole family on youth programs such as swimming, dance, and basketball. The YMCA even offers free health assessments to kickstart your workout. Start the new year off right as a member of the YMCA and enjoy no initiation fees through the end of the month. For a list of locations and to join, visit ymcalincoln.org. The YMCA, for a better us.
Experience flexibility like never before with Ace Rent-to-Own. Whether you're decorating a new home or upgrading your electronics, they provide easy payment plan options that suit your budget. No credit checks, no hefty interest rates, just straightforward renting solutions designed with you in mind. Find great options to make a beautifully furnished space or surround yourself with the latest gadgets. With Ace Rent-to-Own, it's all within your grasp. Visit acerentoown.com and bring home more than just a product. Bring home a lifestyle. Bagels and Joe is the perfect place for breakfast or lunch in December. Try the Cubano panini with ham, applewood smoked pork loin, and more. Order a caramel latte this month, and 10% of proceeds will go to the Apace Foundation. 4 locations in Lincoln and 1 in Seward. Bagels and Joe.
Where will your path take you, traveler? To seek fortune in a new career? Or on a journey to distant lands for a well-deserved vacation? Wherever you go, one distraction could spell disaster. You can change your fate, adventurer. Don't drive distracted. Paid for by the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
Are you looking for some holiday fun? This year, start a new tradition. Make the Nebraska Christmas Lights Show experience an annual event for your family and a cherished memory to look forward to every year. From Black Friday to January 3rd, buckle up and tune into the rhythm of the lights and let the magic of Christmas take over with the show. Now located at Star City Shores, just off of 27th and Highway 2. Buy your tickets for just $20 or $25 per car today at NebraskaChristmasLightShow.com.
December is here, which means your stress levels are probably high as you try to wrap up year-end work tasks, attend holiday gatherings, and find the perfect holiday gift for everyone in your family. Good news! The Body Shop can relieve your stress with a massage for you and a gift card for a massage for your shopping purposes. Book an appointment for yourself or get a gift card for the holidays today at thebodyshoplincoln.com, located at 48th and A.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me, I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Everybody wants a classic Christmas. Well, there's nothing more classic than cash. So until January 3rd, 2024, enter non-winning Nebraska Lottery Holiday Classic scratch tickets online, and you could win $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, or $20,000. Hurry and jingle all the way to your nearest Nebraska Lottery retailer and have yourself a classic little Christmas with the whole family of Holiday Classic scratch tickets. Top prize odds vary by game.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Gaina Trucking guarantees a 40-hour work week year-round, and their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
You're listening to Lloyd. Back to the Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome back into Ticket Weekends. This is going to be a short and sweet segment here. Just got about a couple minutes before we get ready for the breeze. So it'll be me and Haas on that one. Haas streaming in as always will join me. But nonetheless, we got a couple minutes here. So let's go ahead and talk about the mid-season tournament for the NBA. Let me know, do you guys think it was a success or if this thing should dissolve and not come back next season? 402-464-5685, Starter Heyman text line. They tried it a couple times here, or I shouldn't say they tried it. They tried it this season for the first time after talking about it a lot in the offseason. The initial response was negative, including my own. I did not think you would be able to get high-end players like the Lakers, the Bucks. I thought it would only be teams like the Pacers that we saw this year that would actually be invested into trying to win the whole thing by not looking at these games as possible rest games, which they shouldn't. It still counts as the regular season game. That is the one wrinkle about this. That was smart. They still count as regular season wins and losses, except for that championship game, which counts as an 83rd technical game. Doesn't actually fall to anyone's record. But nonetheless, this was a thing early on where NBA players, while it was even going on, they didn't know what was happening. The fans, you can imagine, if the players don't know what's happening in the midseason tournament, the fans probably won't either. So at first, it looked like it was a shaky start. You have star players saying they don't even understand it. They don't support it. You flash forward to where it is now, how after it's all wrapped up, a lot of people are fans of it. It had a lot more energy to those games. The crowd was a lot more into it. And then you have players like Kevin Durant, who after the Lakers beat out the Suns in the midseason tournament semifinals, you heard Kevin Durant talk about how much he was against it early on and said it switched his mind. Now he couldn't wait to watch the championship between what was the Lakers and Pacers, how his initial take was wrong. Like a lot of people's, I was wrong in that one. Signed me up for being in the wrong camp. I thought this thing would be a disaster. I did not think you could get fans to care about the NBA until after the All-Star break. I just thought that was a tough problem to solve. And I was like, maybe there's a way, but this isn't it. A midseason tournament with some extra money on the line is not going to be the way to get players more invested playing high energy games, avoiding those rest days. And I was completely wrong about it. It was an awesome tournament from the first game to the last game. In the Pacers, it's also a great way because, again, I said it last time I was on air doing a solo segment. You have to watch the Indiana Pacers. I know they lost in that tournament to the Lakers, but that was the first time a lot of people were actually watching the Pacers, watching what Tyrese Halliburton is doing over there with his supporting cast of Buddy Hield, who's just another phenomenal player. But that was the first time people got to watch a team like the Indiana Pacers, who aren't on national television a whole lot for obvious reasons, not the biggest market in the NBA, but right now, one of the most exciting offenses to watch and some star young players. And especially with that roster, why it was so fun to watch them through the midseason tournament. Those players are a lot younger than most of the league's average. A lot of that has a young roster for the most part. Average wise, they're towards the bottom end of the league in terms of their age. So you can imagine $500,000 on the line, even though they lost $500,000 on the line for winning it. That means a lot for those guys. That's not just chump change for them with their contracts. For some of those guys, you know, that's half of their contract they'd be able to make right then and there by winning a midseason tournament, which is single elimination. That was another thing that I think really helped. Single elimination games are just awesome. That's why March Madness is so fun to watch, because you can watch St. Peter's Peacocks somehow find enough in their tank to knock off a number one Purdue. Just like this year, single elimination in the midseason tournament, it makes it a lot more fun to watch. There's a lot more on the line. There's no, we'll get him next time. It's you have to go out there and play. And again, watching a team like the Pacers, the amount of excitement they had for it. And then, of course, you give credit to LeBron. You knew he was going to do his best to be the first person ever to have his hands on the trophy. And now whenever he's talking about who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James, well, LeBron James, he's going to have a trophy that he can point to that Michael Jordan never even had the opportunity to win. But it was interesting. I'm curious to see how it goes forward. I will say this, next year, maybe also add to the award a guaranteed play-in spot, that regardless of the record, if you win it from the East or the West, that bottom play-in spot is yours no matter what happens for the rest of the season. You could lose every single game and you still get locked in for that play-in spot because you won the midseason tournament. But I think it was a success this year. Some rules to tweak. The point differential stuff, not great when you're trying to put on points on a team that's already getting beat out badly. But for the most part, Adam Silver, well done. I thought it was a pretty good project all around, and I expect it to continue in the years going forward. But that's going to do it for me. The Breeze up next with me and Haas. Don't go anywhere.